Alright, so today I wanted to make this video because I was looking through some Twitter feeds and apparently people don't really know how grenades work, and especially in regards to the grenade booby traps that you see the Russian soldiers, well, allegedly the Russian soldiers are leaving lying around the cities in the Ukraine whenever they take off. Apparently they've been booby trapping areas, expecting civilians and obviously soldiers to walk through. Most of the booby traps that I've seen pictures of are either F1 grenades or RGD grenades, RGD5 I think it is. Both use the same fuse. In this case, as you read there, it's a UZRGM. The M is just basically means that it's a modern or modernized version of the fuse. And they all work the same. So to start off, I'm going to take this thing apart and show you. I don't think I should have to tell you this, but the grenade and the fuse are completely inert. I had to actually make the striker for mine because the person who sold it didn't have a striker in it or the spring. So this is the fuse. Usually you have a blasting cap attached to the bottom of it. There are different setups to these fuses. Some have 0 delay, which are used for booby traps. Most have about a 4-second delay, which are the grenade ones like this, and apparently they go all the way up to 13 seconds. So to start off with, it's basically made up of the delay element, the piece for connecting it to the grenade, the main body of the fuse, the lever, or people like to call them spoons, the pin, which is the safety mechanism on these, and if you could see inside, there is a striker, go from here, spring, and a washer, which is why you see the little dimples here. It holds a washer in place. This is all removed. I had to put my own in. Anyways, apart from not being a perfect example of a striker, it does do its job. So as you see, my spring's a little weak, but the purpose here is this comes off, and as it comes off, it releases the striker there, and it's supposed to come down and hit the rest of it. So what I'll do is I'll take it apart so it doesn't hit the rest of it. As you see, it's hollow right through, no primer. This piece, as I said, connects the grenade. Feels like going for a walk. And this is the last little part. I don't think because I haven't made it properly yet, but I don't think the striker is going to come right through. Well, we could hope it does, but when I release, oh, there it goes, it actually did. Your striker, your spring, a washer that's supposed to be built into the striker by pressing it properly. I didn't have the tools on me. I got aggravated and I just squeezed it in a vise. So we'll talk about obviously how this works. This is held in place like that, and obviously it levers around it, and as it turns enough, it releases. So it just levers off of the thing and is able to release. That's as simple as this is. It's even simpler than the American versions because the American versions take up less room, so they have to have a rotating striker on it. Whole top part is only for that. As you see, there's a washer in there to keep the spring from going too far up. The washer on here is to keep the spring actually on the cheaply made firing pin. And the firing pin will normally go and strike here. Normally there's a primer that actually goes around this whole piece. It's a pretty large one. I guess I'll be able to make one just for shits and giggles one day. But that primer hits, I'm thinking it actually goes through the primer. I think it's a stab from the looks of how sharp the actual firing pin is. So it stabs through. That's why you'll see gases coming out of the top of these things. The way it's made, it strikes me as that's what it's going to be doing. The delay burns through. The blasting cap is on here. Obviously at the end of the delay it sets off the cap and the whole thing is basically exploded. So that sets off the actual explosive in the grenade, and that's how they work. One thing about this, when it's completely basically in place, this sits about here, which means that even if damage happens or whatever happens to the top part of this, the firing pin or striker, I guess, would not be able to pass by here because this would be going in the way. And in theory, it should be stopping the actual the way it's designed. On mine, I didn't put the bottom part on it because there's supposed to be another crimp on this side, so it doesn't move. And either way, there's a spring, so the spring will never go by it. So it'll end up stopping it with the pin. As I said, that pin's the only real safety on here. Once that's pulled, don't let go of the lever. I'll put this back together and I'll go over a few of the ways that they are booby trapping with these grenades and with the other ones. As I said, all with the same fuse, some modifications, possibly. They might drill out some of the actual delay on here if they have the standard ones. I don't think they're getting that sophisticated. It looks like they're pretty, I guess, unoriginal. Most of the ways that I've seen this has been in manuals from the 50s and 60s, so they aren't being very interesting with it. Then again, it could be that the, what is it, survivor bias or whatever, the ones that they're finding are the ones that aren't actually useful. And the ones that are actually useful are killing the people who are finding them. So maybe that's our problem here. But from so far, all the pictures I've seen haven't really been anything too fancy. Been very simple setups, and I'll go over a few of them now. Alright, so the first type you would see, or you see pictures of, I've set up here as one version of it. So I'm underneath my table at this point in time. Sorry, but... And it's pretty simple to tell here how this one here works. You basically connect it to a solid surface. You see I'm doing a lot with baling wire on doors, inside cabinets, basically on trees, anywhere you could basically connect this grenade to. And then they connect the pin to something somebody's going to move, or a tripwire. So in this case, if somebody were to come here and not know any better, say they just got back into their house and they pulled the chair to sit down at the table, you're going to obviously pull on the pin. No one's holding this down, which means it's gonna flick up right away and set off the grenade. And very simple, not very obviously original. I'm sure you've all seen it. It's a movie trope. Somebody ties a grenade to something and sets a pin for a tripwire. Only other thing I could say is if you want it to be real sensitive, you would straighten out the wire. If you want it to be safer for you to install and a little bit more of a difficult thing to pull on, you would just bend your wire, you would bend your pin a little bit like that. Soldiers are usually trained to find these kind of things when they go into buildings. Civilians coming back home, not so much. So they probably will be having issues with this. Actually, I guess I'd better avoid cheating you guys out of just seeing the thing pop. Unfortunately, like I said, there are no primers in this one here. And I hope I don't actually damage the bottom. But I go to pull my chair, and basically that's what happens. And I guess we'll go into the next type of grenade. Well, booby trap, I guess, that I've seen him use over there. And I'll set that up now. Alright, so the second type of booby trap that you see often is one where the actual string, and once again, this is for visual, and not the type of string you would normally try to string it up with. You want to try to make that as obviously invisible as possible, which is why you always see the typical movie tropes or whatever of fishing line and stuff like that. In reality, if somebody's looking for it, probably a good idea. In the cases of this, like I said, I've seen with wire, no one's going to be able to see it if it's dark and you're walking around, no one paying attention to it, especially civilians. You could probably keep an orange wire and nobody would notice it. But anyways, as you see, your whole grenade is being pulled by this wire. So what you would do is you'd get some sort of a sleeve. You could be creative, you could be whatever. In this case, just a can of spray or of cream, whipping cream works. So you would take your grenade, stick it into the can like this, and then when it's in the can, assuming you did everything right, you would pull the pin on it, and the can is holding the pin, well, holding the lever down. So what you would do is when you're pulling it out, obviously, it will finally release when it comes out, and basically set off your grenade. This one here, I'll pin it back up and I'll set it up to actually do it properly. But I find this method here actually more useful than the other method. And it's probably more about feel, I guess, than anything else. But if the person's walking and they clip a string that's got a grenade attached to it, the grenade is being pulled towards the person. So in theory, you could set that thing a lot further away and not have to worry about it. And when they pull on it, the grenade will come out and slightly behind them. That would make it obviously closer to them, better chances of being killed or injured by the actual grenade. Since it's also wrapped around your leg, if you notice the grenade's there, it might actually scare you into running a bit faster, and even then, that's just going to pull it closer to you. So I'll set it up and just give a quick demonstration of what that could look like. Alright, so I've got it set up here, or obviously it's very obvious that it's some sort of thing, but if you were to basically screw it into there from the inside, and there was a bunch of junk lying around, you're inside a house that's been looted, so putting the cap back on here would make it just look like a can lying around, so it would basically camouflage it. In this case, obviously I have blue tape on it, makes it very obvious. Then I've got the thing running across my kitchen to the fridge. So I'll walk through it and we'll see how effective it actually would be. I may end up pulling the tape off because obviously I'm caring about my house and not actually setting traps. So we'll see if it works, and it should, but we'll see. Alright, setting it up like that. If I walk through it, obviously it shouldn't be this visible, but and probably not a good idea to have it in such a long distance, but you'll get the point when I walk through this, if it does what it's supposed to. Walking. And as you see, it sprung. Once again, You see how it pulls out and comes towards a person? That would cause, obviously, some panic, and it would probably end up killing them. So that's the second way it's done. Alright, the third way that I've seen in the pictures that apparently they're doing things is they're getting breakable containers. In this case, this one fits, so I did it. And they're placing the grenade in the containers and pulling the pin on it as they put it in. This way, the glass jar is holding the lever down, and as soon as something breaks that glass jar, either it's tied to something and it falls off, or it's sitting over a door or something, and when you open the door it teeters off and breaks when it hits the ground. Your grenade now is able to release the lever, and basically the grenade goes off. They hide them in cabinets, they hide them in pretty much anything that they can move and have it fall off of. So height is usually where these come in handy. So as I said, upper cabinets and kitchens is where the picture I saw of one was. On top of door frames, anything that you could basically perch it on. And anyways, dropping shit off my own table. So anyways, anything that could break the glass, either a jar, glass, anything like that, will release the lever and set off the grenade. So that's another type of booby trap they use. The last one I'm not going to bother showing because I saw it, but I don't really understand why it was done that way. But they just took a grenade, pulled a pin, and stuck it in the washing machine's soap bin, basically, or whatever you call it. The little plastic thing you open. The grenade was fully visible, so I'm not sure what they were going for there. Unless somebody moved it in the picture and it was actually inside. Even then, I don't know how well that would have worked. So maybe it's that as soon as you pull open the soap dispenser, if it fits, it goes in. This one here was sitting above the soap dispenser with the grenade, main body of the grenade inside it, and it was just being held there by the plastic from the washing machine. Maybe the person decided what they were going to do is turn it on, and as the machine was running, it would shake the door loose, which would release a pin, so they could just blow up a grenade when they're not there. I don't know what the purpose of that one was. Either way, it was set up as a booby trap according to the Ukrainians. And that's pretty much it on that case there. Alright, and that's basically from the pictures that I've seen so far, using the hand grenades, that's the way it was going. So basically it's just using objects as a person's hand. So either you hold the lever with whatever object it is, pull the pin, and whoever opens the object releases the grenade. Apparently that's how you do it if you're putting it under a body, for example. That's what they would do. They'd use a body to hold it. As soon as somebody turns the body, moves it, trying to loot the body, the grenade releases and explodes. Obviously, if you're trying to move a body for burial or to clean up the area, same issue. So that's where the problem with that lies. Also, both sides of this are obviously throwing in propaganda. That's why you're not going to see me taking any political sides on this whole war. I'll talk about the things that I find interesting, but even then I'm going to try to avoid it. I found this important to talk about because there's a lot of questions concerning how the booby traps were working. A lot of people don't know these things. They don't know how the grenades work, so obviously they don't know how the booby traps work for them. And just as how these things go. But as I said, both sides of this war, including the countries that are helping both sides of the war, are in a full-out propaganda race. I don't know if they're trying to cover their own asses or what, but both sides are doing things they shouldn't be doing. It's too bad that they're actually fighting over there. It's a stupid thing to be doing, but politicians tend to do that kind of crap with people. It doesn't cost them anything. It costs the people that are going over there fighting, or the people whose houses and lives are being destroyed by people fighting in their countries. So, in the end, like I said, I avoid the whole politics of it. I don't choose sides on this. I know both sides have done things that they really shouldn't have been doing. And I'm not going to get into that. There are people out there that will talk about that kind of stuff. I really just like the actual technologies of different conflicts. So I will talk about that, but I'm not going to talk about the politics, say, with the Palestinians versus the Israelis, Syrian government, you name it. They're just, that's for politics channels to deal with. I don't want to deal with it. I don't enjoy dealing with that kind of stuff, and all it does is fight, cause people to fight. So I stick to the technologies. I hope this was somewhat interesting for you guys. See how this kind of stuff works, see how you could sort of protect yourself against it if you're in a country that's has this kind of stuff happening. And as I said, there's plenty of real booby traps out there, especially made ones, fuses made specifically for these grenades that are actually booby trap fuses. So this is just talking about the grenades themselves, last ditch attempts for people to set traps. As I said, you see them a lot in movies, and that's why you're seeing it a lot there. They're just doing what they think will work. And once again, probably just a survivor bias, where I consider most of these pretty easy to spot versus some of the stuff that you're seeing in videos and that of Afghanistan and Iraq. Very basic, but like I said, the ones that could be fancy might not be getting seen until after the case, after the fact, and no one's going to be putting up a video of a successful booby trap because it's not a very pleasant thing to look at. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them obviously below, and hope this wasn't too boring for you guys. Have a good one.